Welcome to the Shout Out with Sage show. Shout Out with Sage.
Shout me out.
And that's all I gotta say. So shout out and let's go.
Hello.
Hello.
Welcome to Stream and Hub Radio. I'm Sage Stevens, the host of Shout Out with Sage. And today my guest is an actress who you can see starring in the film TEELA the Masters of the Universe, directed by Jonathan Martin and music by multi-Emmy nominated Patrick Hogan and stunts by Christian Kang Bakini. So by the power of Grayskull, let's start the interview with Emily Ashby. Hi, Emily. How are you today?
Hi, Sage. I am doing wonderful, and thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for being here. Thanks for taking the time out of your day. It seems like you got a lot of press for this film, even though it's a short. So how did all that happen for you? Was that planned ahead of time, or did that just sort of happen serendipitously?
So that actually was not planned. We were so fortunate. So initially, we weren't planning on releasing the video or the film out to the public. That was actually a decision we made after the fact because the film is an audition piece. However, when we discussed and we talked with my manager about it, we decided to release it. And we weren't sure what to expect. I've never ever released an audition piece out to the public. And so we actually got contacted by Movie Maker magazine, as well as several other publishings to request that they could publish it for us, which was wonderful. So
right. Obviously, yes. That's great. You've worked with the stunt coordinator. Was stunt something new to you? Have you done that before?
So stunts actually was a little bit newer to me. So I had actually worked on some stunt training before COVID hit. But I do have a background in martial arts. So that's kind of where it stemmed from, was my background in martial arts. However, I hadn't done the stunt training until just a few years ago. And I started working on that. Then COVID hit. And so I wasn't able to do as much stunt training during COVID. And so this was actually something that we kind of picked up where we left off. And we actually only had a week of stunt training to work on this piece, which was a little bit crazy, especially not doing any stunts for a while. So,
right. Did you do a lot of takes for each stunt, or was it pretty easy? Or
it actually was pretty, I wouldn't say easy, actually. Easy is a tough word when it comes to action in general. But I would say we didn't do a ton of takes because we didn't have a ton of time for takes. We actually shot the whole thing in 2 days, which was a little bit, typically on a scene like this, you'd probably want more like a week. So we only had the 2 days. So we didn't have very much time. We had to kind of nail it. And with the week's rehearsal time, that gave me time to kind of know the choreography for the most part. But there is a fun story when it comes to some of the choreography that I can tell you if you want to hear it.
For sure. A good story is always a good story. So go for it.
I always love good stories, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, so we had the 2 days to shoot, and Jonathan had written out our initial script. And we had actually a slightly different plan when we had choreographed the film. And so for the second day, when we were realizing all that we had left to shoot in the script, we had to re-choreograph it. And so similar principle in the storyline. However, we changed up the entire choreography. So me and the stunt actors and Christian Kang Bakini, he actually came up with Jonathan a whole new choreography for that second day. And so that second day we shot 77 setups, and we actually just rehearsed and then shot. So we didn't know the choreography. Christian went through everything with us. We just kept rehearsing it, and we'd get those shots, and then we'd move on. So yeah, there was a bit of planning and not planning involved with it.
What other hurdles did you face when developing the film? It sounds like you had a couple there. So
I love that you ask these questions, because these are questions that are good for people to know. And anybody, I know you have a background in film too as well. It's like anybody in the film industry understands that usually on any film set, you have hurdles. And for you at the end of the wrap, and you finally wrap, you're like, we got through it.
Yeah, like it's like every day or every hour there's something that you have to overcome. Like there's always a problem. So you just have to like figure out how to keep moving forward and solving things as you go. And like really the premise for this show, like one of the reasons is for people, for beginners and novice filmmakers to, gain insight and information from people who've already done it. So yeah, that's why I always ask these type of questions of people. So.
Yes, these are great questions to ask, and quite inspiring for people too as well. So as far as hurdles, initially, as you can see in the film, we have 3 other stunt actors. So we have Christian, we have Halem, and we have Elwin. And we had written the script that way, to have a fight of 1 girl versus 3 guys.
Right.
And so we lost our first couple stunt actors that had initially committed to the first role. And I always joke, it's because I was the one who was going to beat them up, and they didn't want to get beat up
by a girl, right?
I don't want to be that person, right? I want to be the person that triumphs at the end. So that's our joke. But so we had rehearsed with 1 actor, and then they just last minute said they couldn't. So then we tried to find somebody in just a couple of days. They said, for sure, I'll be there. Great, awesome. And then they decided they were going to pull out. And so another hurdle that we had, which was a really fun one, is we get to film and we're like, you know what? We're just going to go with 2 people. We're just going to have a 3-way fight. We'll make it work.
Right.
So we go out, and we are filming out in the desert near Nevada. It's where we filmed this. And so we go out there, and everything's fine and peachy. And all of a sudden, the wind starts picking up. And it's a desert. We're in the middle of nowhere. There's sand everywhere. And it starts picking up, and the sand's flying everywhere in everybody's eyes. Nobody can really see. And it's affecting
Basically, you're a Burning Man, and you didn't know it.
Yeah, we didn't have like the whole mask thing and the eyeglasses. Like we were underprepared. Except for, what's funny is, and you can see it in the behind the scenes photos, but our director of photography, he had the most amazing Oakley sunglasses that like covered all the way his entire like eyes and everything. And he was fine. He's like, guys, I'm good. I can go all day, in the sandstorm. But so sandstorm hits, and we realize we're going to have to call it. We look at the weather for the next day. Well, not good weather. And we're like, you know what? We're going to have to find a whole new shoot. So we weren't really able to get much filming done other than the one Bruce Lee shot that you see where we're coming into me. And I put my hand out. We got that shot. And that's the only shot that we ended up using for the first film day. So we had to reschedule everything with that.
Yes, that happens, unfortunately. So, but you kept going. You had fortitude. Your music was created by Patrick Hogan. How did that happen for you? How did that collaboration come about?
Yeah, so music is actually created, I'll correct you on this one. Garrett Wonder did the music, combined with the sound design is Patrick Hogan. And like you said, multi-Emmy nominee. And we met Patrick through my boyfriend who directed, Jonathan Martin, the piece. We met Patrick through his film festival, Film Quest. And so Patrick comes through the festival, and we were chatting with him, and we said, hey, look, we're going to make a piece. It's going to be a really over-the-top audition, and it's for He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. Right. And he was like, yes, I am in. I love He-Man. I'm totally down. And he came in, and it turned out incredible. We were actually able to finish the sound design at the Paramount Studios with him and his team who worked on it. We have a whole slew of names in the credits for all of the team that worked on that sound design. But yeah, it was amazing. and incredible to hear it in the big studio where you actually hear sound at its finest.
Right.
So that was super incredible, and we really appreciate Patrick.
When I watched it, there's like this like the sense of humor, the tone of it sort of reminded me of like it was an homage to like The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly or something by Sergio Leone or something like that. Was that intentional? Who came up with that?
I'm so glad you picked up on that, Sage. That was totally intentional, and that was all Jonathan. So he was, and Jonathan really grew up with Masters of the Universe. So he really has that background, but he's envisioning, he's like, they're out in the desert, they're not at Grayskull, and we have these different characters. Now, granted, these characters are not actual He-Man characters. The story behind that is because we were trying to obviously do this at a reasonable budget. We got donated a bunch of costumes that were actually in film.
The costumes are amazing. Like the whole production value and set, everything looks amazing. So yeah.
Well, thank you. Yes. And that was a huge donation, and we really appreciated that. And so we're like, we're going to come up with these characters. And so Jonathan was like, they're going to have a duel. It's going to be this moment, this Western Good, the Bad, and the Ugly exact moment, where they come in, they all see the sword, they want the sword, and now we have that classic Western moment. And you can hear that also in the music, and there's an homage to that Garrett Wonder, who did the score, which we also have the score as a solo online too as well. So he kind of incorporated a little bit of those Western feels. With that, and then also with my song, so each character has kind of their own song, and you'll hear it with my character there is that Western undertone too, as well as my character is introduced.
And I love the artwork at the end. Who did that? That was amazing. Like your credits look amazing as well. So
I have to double check his name. As I was like, we have so many people, he's in the credits. Jonathan will beat me up for not knowing his name, but
that's okay.
I gotta give him a shout out. He's all the way from the UK, and he's worked with Jonathan on several of his films, and he also did all the CGI effects for us on this project too as well. So he did all of that.
Yeah, I love the credits. They're really well done. What other hurdles have you faced? Like, you're an actress, you're in LA, you're in Hollywood. So as an actress, what have you been doing lately? And how has anything good or bad happened to you?
I love that you asked that too as well. And as you know, the industry, there's always going to be a rough side to the industry. And I view it kind of like it's all about how you look at it. I definitely am a very positive thinker when it just comes to, the process of being an actress, the audition process. I view it, like you're going to have a bunch of different characters in every story, and you're going to try and give your take on that character, but you're not always going to be the right vision for that character in that story. And there's some things that you can do and some things you can't do. You just might not be the right look. And there's always going to be that hurdle, right, of kind of finding where do you fit into the story, and really, becoming those characters. That's always going to be a hurdle. I think for me too, as well, is it's kind of branching out of certain role types. And not that typecasting definitely can be a good thing. There are a lot of famous actors that are typecast, and you see them in similar type roles, but they're always working. They're working on great projects and so on and so forth. So I don't necessarily look at typecasting as a bad thing. But for me, I really want to branch out into the roles more action-based. As you see in this piece is kind of creating the female power and the action kind of figure type roles and powerful roles too as well. As well as I would love to branch out and even do characters that look nothing like me. And just do, full makeup effects and really change my look and so on and so forth, as far as that goes. But as far as, casting and stuff, I have a lot of really great people I've worked with, and I'm getting cast and working with that I absolutely love. So I look at it like the more you work, the merrier. And I really appreciate all the projects that I've, been a part of and gotten to work on too as well. So,
Right.
But it's all about that typecasting, right? Is what do you want to do with your career and how do you take it that way?
Right. You mentioned that this was an audition piece. Do you want to give us some background on what that was for?
Yes. So the audition piece is specifically created because we had a connection, and this was through my manager. And we were talking one day, and really how it came to be is since my boyfriend is a big fan of Masters of the Universe and he grew up with it, he was looking at the TEELA action figure, like the actual toy action figure, which he'll totally be so happy me telling everybody that he has a huge collection of toys. Through.
I'm sure he's not the only guy out there who does that.
No,
so.
I'm telling you, most filmmakers do have a collection of toys. We've kind of taken the stats on that. I want to say it's like 90% of filmmakers that have these toy collections. But yeah, so he's looking at this action figure and he's like, you look like TEELA. You look like this character. You have the body type, you have, the red hair, the look of this character. And so we were chatting with my manager and we know that they're making a live action film. And so my manager was like, wait a minute, I've worked with that casting director on several projects. Let's make her something really awesome. And this piece is going to be a piece for the character and for the role, but not only that, but also an action piece for me. Because, with an audition that is a full production, right? And standardly, a lot of actors won't go to that extent. We wanted to have multi-purpose, right? Okay, we're going to create something that's really cool. They can't unsee me as this character, my take on the character, but also something that can be used to get me other jobs and roles within action too as well. So
exactly. Why did you become an actor?
I've always loved acting ever since I was a young girl. I started, my schooling had a musical theater program. In fact, we were kind of required to be a part of theater. So, I got very involved with that early on. But I also had an acting gig, which I don't recall too much because a lot of times we don't remember things from when we're 3 years old. But my mom actually told me this, and this is kind of a little bit of a backstory when it comes to action and what inspires me about that is I have an uncle that was in the Olympics back in 88 and 92.
Okay.
And his name is Dave Johnson, and he has a bronze medal in the USA Olympics in the decathlon. And so growing up with that, I would see my uncle, and he looked like a superhero to me because he could literally fly with a pole, and you see those Olympians, you're like, whoa, that really is incredible. They're kind of superhuman. So I kind of had that, as a child. And my first actual acting gig was in a Reebok commercial when I was 3 years old. And my mom told me apparently I didn't want to say the lines how they wanted me to. And so they would feed me all these cookies. They kept feeding me more and more cookies. Say the line, and I would kind of coax them. And then apparently they had to pay for me for 2 days because I didn't want to say it the way they wanted to. And I told my mom, I'm a clever girl. I was just making sure we got all the money. So that
you
was
wanted to have artistic license, right? Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. So that was my first ever experience that I don't really remember that much. But then growing up, I was involved with musical theater. But for me, and I really enjoyed theater, but I will say the stage is very different than film. And part of what I felt, I kind of had a fear of the stage. I still went out and experienced, but I wanted to do more lead type roles, but I was just being on stage. I'm like, everybody's watching. I would get that fear. But then one day I was thinking about it and I was like, why haven't you tried film? And so that's what kind of got me into, hey, I'm gonna try out film. And so I started doing acting classes and completely fell in love with film acting. I And not that I won't ever go back to the stage, because I keep thinking, maybe one day I go back to the stage. But having both training definitely helps me, but film is definitely my love.
Well, yes, theater, the show must always go on, even if something happens. So film, it stops, starts. So it's a little less intimidating, I think, maybe. So maybe that's why you like
it. Yes, exactly.
Definitely. What is the biggest piece of advice you'd give to someone that was starting out to be an actor?
That's a good one. My biggest piece of advice would be, don't be afraid, and don't worry about what other people think of you. Do it because you love it, and fall in love with it. And to me, I think that's the most important thing, because you look at a lot of actors, even some of these big, great actors, big name actors that we absolutely love, and the criticism that can come with that too as well.
Right.
With any of the performances and all those kind of things. And I think what's most important is sometimes people are afraid of what other people are going to think, or am I not going to be good enough? And at the end of the day, if you have that mindset, you won't be good enough, because you're holding yourself back. And oftentimes we're the ones who limit ourselves when it comes to our capabilities. And so I would say, just go after it. Try it out, do it. And don't ever be afraid that you're not going to be good enough. Don't limit yourself. Don't set those limitations on yourself. Push yourself further, and know that it takes time. It really does take a lot of time and a lot of effort and a lot of grit. And you got to keep going at it. You can't just be like, well, haven't won an Emmy and it's been 6 months, Right. Well, just keep going at it.
What would your biggest tip be for someone who wanted to be an actress in LA?
My biggest tip would be, surround yourself, get in with a good group of people. I think that's really, really important. And continuing to expand your network is really, really important. I think sometimes some people may forget that having the network and just continuing to meet people and expand, honestly, those face-to-face connections are so important. And that's where people get to know you, and they're like, oh, I like that person. I really want to work with them because I also like to be around them. I could see myself spending multiple months working on the film project with them, right? Because they're familiar with you and your personality. I say, get in with some good people, keep expanding your network, and then also get some good representation of people that believe in you, that are really gonna, root for you and work hard for you in your career.
You mentioned that you have an agent or a manager or both. How did you get that? How did that come about for you?
So with my manager, in fact, it really comes down to my network and meeting good people who really, want to help you out. Wendy was involved. Wendy introduced me to, and Wendy Binge, a mutual friend. She introduced me to my agent, as well as my manager too, as well. And so, I'm telling you guys, like, really the best thing is just meeting good people, being around really good people that, want to befriend you and help you, and you help them. And it's a give situation. But yeah, she introduced me to my manager. And I also think it's good and important that you meet with whoever you're wanting to get represented by, and make sure that, you have a good connection with that person, because it is a collaboration. When you're saying, hey, I want to work with you to, expand my career, and hopefully that's for the rest of my life, my whole career, that's a big decision, right? And so you really want to have somebody that's rooting for you, that works well with you and understands your goals.
What do you love most about the entertainment industry?
What I love most is a great story. when it comes to, a film. To me, there's so much involved in the industry with a big collaboration of different artists, and that is involved in an entire production. There are so many people that are so talented in so many different ways working for that entire production to make that story come to life. And for me, I love most just seeing that story come to life and being a part of that. No matter how big the part is in the story, it's just when you see it all come together and then the impact that has on the audience. The film industry is so important. It is such an important entertainment, not just for the enjoyment of it, but just the impact that these stories have on people. We all love to go to the cinema. It's a cinema therapy, right?
Yeah.
We go to the cinema to have a good laugh, to have a good cry, and so just being a part of that, like, to me, that's just magic,
What do you see yourself doing in 5 years? Where do you want to be? What's your career? Where are you?
Such a good question. Interview questions, right? So in 5 years, obviously I would love to see myself still, acting in films, taking on some big, wonderful films and projects. I would also like to see myself designing clothes. That's always been on the side. Something I'm going to do and make happen is having a clothing line. And doing the fashion design and having my own designs. I would love to do a runway show. So that definitely is something I would love to do one day. And then, I'm going to be getting married this year.
Wow.
Sometime.
Congratulations.
So,
That's amazing.
Thank you. Well, thank you. And so just continuing our life. And my boyfriend and I will be doing a feature film together this year. So
what other projects? So that sort of leads me. What other projects do you have coming up? What are you working on next?
So I just wrapped a feature film in LA just a month ago, and that is a horror film that will most likely be done by the end of the year, it sounds like. And so there will be more information on that. So I wrapped that, and then right now we're working on a screenplay for a feature film that we're hoping to film in the next 5 months or so. So we're going to make that happen, and Jonathan will be directing that.
What is success to you?
Ooh, such a good question, Sage.
I know. I'm sorry. Everyone always, whenever I ask that one, everyone sort of gets, they're like, whoa, wasn't expecting that.
Well, that's deep. That's so deep. Success to me is doing what you love. And that's a very broad answer, but I view it in the way of, if you're doing what you love. So for me, be on any film set, working on any project, to me, each one of those is a success to me. It's a new experience I have. It's a new character I'm developing, a new part of me that I'm realizing with each story that I am a part of. And so I view it just doing what you love. When you're working and you're enjoying what you're doing, to me, that's success.
And the show is called Shout Out with Sage. So is there anyone that you'd like to get a shout out to that's been pivotal or inspirational to you, or like maybe gave you a shove when you're, not in a great place?
Well, definitely. I have a lot of people to shout out. I feel like we could be here another half an hour. But speaking of network, for me, definitely my boyfriend, Jonathan Martin, has been a huge person that has really pushed me. And I think as an actor, you're always going to have your times where you're down a little bit on yourself and you're like, why am I not working 24/7? And you're hard on yourself. And he's always there. He's always doing auditions with me and pushing me and going above and beyond, doing this TEELA audition with me too as well.
Yeah, that was, I mean, if that's not devotion and love, to do a whole, that was yeah, it was a very strong movie for an audition.
Well, thank you so much. And that's how if he's not my biggest fan, I don't know who is
Right.
when it comes to that. And he's always pimping me out. In fact, it's funny because he's not my manager, but half the time he is my manager in a way because he's like,
Nice.
"Hey, you should cast my girlfriend. Do you want a redhead in your film? Okay, cast my girlfriend." And he's always pimping me out. So.
Right.
He's definitely a huge support. So always him, of course, and I'm always supporting him too as well. Reading his scripts and giving. We work well together when it comes to actress and filmmaker and working on projects. But also Wendy Bench.
Nice.
She's always as you know, Wendy.
Yeah, we both know Wendy, which is how this happened today. So
exactly,
yes.
that's why I'm here today, is because of Wendy, as well as she's pimping me out, introducing me to you, and always rooting me on, introducing me to anybody in the industry that she thinks that will help me. She's been wonderful and a true friend to me. So I always appreciate you, Wendy. And thank you for introducing me to Sage, because I love Sage is that we're two redheads,
Yes, I know. I was like, ooh, I've had a few other, yes, exactly. I've had a few other redheads. I'm like, I think we're only like 6% of the population, but on my show, I've had a couple other musicians, and there's someone else who was a redhead. I forget, but yeah, I'm like, woohoo.
Woohoo! Yes, go redheads.
Yeah.
So yes, definitely Wendy. And definitely shout out to everybody who worked on the project for the TEELA project, because I will say, to make a project like this, it looks a lot more expensive than we spent on it because of the donation of time that everybody gave, and doing it for much cheaper than they're worth, just to make this happen for us, which we appreciate so much. So Patrick Hogan and his entire team that he brought together to do the sound. I mean, sound is so essential when it comes to film, and they just did phenomenal. As well as Garrett Wonder, who did the score for us, which is just absolutely gorgeous. And he also, Garrett worked on the CW Supergirl. He's worked on a lot of Netflix films too as well, including Slumberland. And he's apparently signed on to do a big Netflix animation, which we don't know what it is yet. So he's phenomenal. He does great work. As well as Christian Bacchini, who came all the way from Italy. It just so happened because he lives out in Italy, to work on the choreography and do the stunt acting for the entire film. So we really had a lot of really great people just come in and collaborate on this, which was phenomenal. So
it's an amazing piece. So I mean, it takes a lot of work to do anything. So you should be very happy with what happened. Where else can we find you? Where are you on social media?
Yes. So I am Emily Ann with an E, Emily Ann Ashby, on Instagram, as well as TikTok, as well as I do have a Twitter, which I hadn't really used Twitter before, but I tweeted out the Movie Maker magazine. So I'm finally getting some followers on Twitter, which is great, because I've just never really known how to use Twitter. I'm like, what do I tweet? I don't really know. So I am on Twitter too, as well. Emily Ashby. And I am on YouTube, but you can also see more of our work together at the Bohemian Industries YouTube, which is where we have the TEELA audition published.
Okay, great. Well, thanks so much for being here today on Shout Out with Sage on Streaming Hub Radio. It was great chatting with you and learning about your career so far, and the movie. The movie was like so good. I can't say enough about it. TEELA and Masters of the Universe, and let people know where they can find it again on the internet.
It's going to be at Bohemian Industries, but however, if you just YouTube TEELA, it's the first thing that comes up. So we did make it to the top because we hit over 500,000 views on that, which was really great. So yeah, just search for TEELA in YouTube and you will find it.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much, Emily, for being here today. I'm sure I'll see you around somewhere at some event or bump into you when we're hanging out with
Hopefully just
Wendy.
meet in person next time.
Yes, exactly, exactly. Okay.
Thanks so much, Sage, for having me.
Thank you. Thanks for being here. And thank you everyone for watching today. This is Sage Stevens, the host of Shout Out with Sage on Stream Hub Radio. And see you next Wednesday at 4. Bye everyone. Have a great day. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.